There are 10 texts, each one no longer than a page, each one written to be read 3 times a day, each one held for 30 days before moving to the next. If you follow the instructions exactly, your income will change. Not because the words are magic, because of what the words do to the part of your brain that controls every financial decision you make. Most people read these texts once. They find them beautiful. They feel inspired for an afternoon. And then nothing changes because they miss the only thing that matters. The method of reading them is the secret, not the words themselves. My name is Og Mandino. I spent years studying why certain words read in a specific sequence at specific times of day for a specific duration, produce permanent behavioral change. And behavioral change is the only thing that produces permanent income change. Everything else is temporary. Let me explain the mechanism first, because if you understand why the method works, you will never skip a reading again. The human brain has a filter. Neuroscientists call it the reticular activating system. Its job is to decide what information reaches your conscious awareness and what gets discarded. Right now, your reticular activating system is filtering out most of the world around you. Sounds in the room, the weight of your clothes, the temperature of the air, filters these out because they are not flagged as important. Here is what determines what gets flagged: repetition. Whatever you encounter repeatedly, the brain flags as important. Whatever is flagged as important, the brain begins to notice everywhere. This is why after you buy a red car, you suddenly see red cars everywhere. They were always there. Your filter just wasn't looking for them. 3 readings per day for 30 days equals 90 total readings of a single text. 90 repetitions. At that threshold, the content of the text stops being something you read and becomes something you see. You start noticing opportunities that were always present but previously invisible. You start responding to people differently, instinctively, automatically, in ways that build income rather than destroy it. Not because you're trying, because your filter changed. That is the mechanism. That is why 3 times per day, not once, not twice, 3. The first reading in silence when you wake up in the morning. The second reading in silence after lunch. The third reading aloud, out loud, just before sleep. The sequence is not arbitrary. Morning, your mind is in its most receptive state. The filter is still lowering from sleep. Whatever enters first sets the frame for the entire day. Midday, the mind has been running for hours. It needs a reset. A single reading, silent, focused, returns it to the direction you chose at dawn. Before sleep, aloud. This is the most critical of the 3. When you read aloud, you engage 3 systems simultaneously. Your visual cortex processes the words. Your motor cortex controls the speech. Your auditory cortex hears them back. 3 systems. 3 times the neural encoding of a silent reading. And you do this immediately before sleep, which means the subconscious processes those words for the next 7 to 8 hours without interruption. Every night for 30 days. That is 210 hours of subconscious processing on a single text. Most people spend that time processing their fears, their debts. You are going to spend it differently. Of the 10 scrolls, 4 are directly responsible for income transformation. Not all 10 equally. 4 specifically. I will give you the exact mechanism of each. Scroll 2, I will greet this day with love in my heart. Most people misread this scroll. They think it is about kindness. It does not. It is about sales, about persuasion, about the specific emotional state that makes other people want to give you money. Every transaction in the world, every purchase, every contract, every deal is made between two human beings whose emotional states are affecting each other in real time. When you enter a room in a state of genuine warmth, not performed warmth, genuine warmth, the other person's nervous system detects it. Their cortisol drops. Their oxytocin rises. They become more open, more trusting, more willing to say yes. This scroll, read 3 times daily for 30 days, trains that state as your default. Not something you put on before a meeting, something that is simply there, automatically. That automatic warmth is worth more than any sales technique ever written. Scroll 3, I will persist until I succeed. This is the scroll that separates the people who build income from the people who plan to. Here is the specific line that matters. I will try again and again and again. Each obstacle I will consider as a mere detour to my goal and a challenge to my profession. The word detour is precise. A detour is not a dead end. A detour still leads to the destination. It simply requires a different path. The people who build income consistently are not more talented. They are not luckier. They have simply installed detour where most people have installed stop. 30 days of reading this scroll 3 times per day begins installing that replacement. Not as an intellectual concept, as an automatic response. Scroll V, I will live this day as if it is my last. This scroll sounds spiritual. It is financial. The reason most people earn less than they could is not lack of ability. It is postponement. The call they will make tomorrow. The proposal they will send next week. The conversation they are not quite ready for yet. I will waste not a moment mourning yesterday's misfortunes, yesterday's defeats, yesterday's heartaches. For why should I throw good hours after bad? 30 days of reading this scroll 3 times per day begins eliminating postponement behavior at the source, not through willpower, through repeated reprogramming of the default response to opportunity. The income that was always available becomes the income that is actually captured. Scroll 9, I will act now. This is the shortest scroll and the most powerful. The entire scroll is a single phrase repeated and expanded. I will act now. I will act now. I will act now. Repeated throughout the text. 36 variations of the same instruction. Mandino understood something that behavioral psychologists would not confirm for decades after. The gap between intention and action is not a gap of willpower. It is a gap of neural habit. The automatic hesitation that occurs between deciding to do something and actually doing it is a trained behavior. It was installed by repetition. It can be removed by repetition. 30 days of reading this scroll 3 times per day begins removing that hesitation at the automatic level. Not I should act now. I act now as the default. The income difference between someone who hesitates and someone who acts immediately on the same opportunity is not small. Over a lifetime, it is everything. One more thing. The scrolls must be read in sequence. You cannot skip to scroll 9. You cannot start with the one that appeals most. The sequence is a structure. Scroll I prepares the mind to receive. Scroll 2 installs the emotional foundation. Scroll 3 installs the persistence mechanism. Scrolls IV through V8 build the architecture. Scroll lines activates everything that came before. If you try to install action, scroll lines without first installing persistence. Scroll 3 and warmth. Scroll 3 unsustained. ultimately more exhausting than productive. The sequence is the method. The sequence is not optional. 300 days total, 10 scrolls, 30 days each, 3 readings per day. At the end of those 300 days, the 10 behaviors encoded in the scrolls will be your automatic responses to every situation you face. Not aspirations, not intentions, default behaviors, and default behaviors determine income, not talent, not timing, not luck, default behaviors. Here is where to start. Tonight, before sleep, read Scroll I out loud. The entire text, slowly. Tomorrow morning, read it again, in silence. Tomorrow after lunch, read it again, in silence. Do this for 30 consecutive days, then move to Scroll 2. The scrolls have been in print since 1968. 50 million copies sold. The method, I just gave you 3 specific times, specific sequence, specific voice for each reading is in the book. Most of those 50 million readers never did it. They read the words, they skipped the method, and then they wondered why nothing changed. The words are not the secret. The method is the secret. Now you have both.